Bruchim Habayim. So this is our first Lunch and Learn on Facebook Live. We're experimenting a little bit with different media platforms, ways to share Torah. We have our Shul WhatsApp group, and there we put out Divrei Torah every week. Here is another option for learning. This will be on Facebook Live once a week. So without further ado, I want to get started because we have a short amount of time and I want to get through a lot of material. It's going to kind of be based on Ethics of the Soul, as I said, the book that I put out. You can find that on Amazon. A few things about my commentary on this book. So one is that I wrote this during COVID, as I said, and so a lot of the explanations are really kind of like, there's a lot of personal stories in my book, and I like new ideas because I worked really hard to come up with new ideas. So you will hear a lot of new ideas, new commentary on Pirkei Avos that you may have never heard, Ethics of the Fathers. Another direction that I'm very careful with is when I explain the Mishnas, I try to explain not just the individual elements of the Mishnah, individual teachings, but try to put them all together. Maharal does this very well, so I really appreciate that. So a lot of the commentary I'm going to offer you will try to connect the different pieces of our Mishnah. So without further ado, I'm going to move on to Mishnah 1 in chapter 1. Okay, so this Mishnah says, Moshe received the Torah from Sinai and transmitted it to Yehoshua to the elders to the prophets, and the prophets to the men of the great assembly. So you have a certain transference of Torah. And if you want to follow along, you can just look online, chapter 1, Ethics of the Fathers, or find any Siddur that might have it. Otherwise, you could just listen to me explain, reading out the Mishnahs. They said three things. So the men of the Great Assembly said three things. Number one is be patient in the administration of justice, raise up many disciples, and make a fence around the Torah. So in my commentary here, I mentioned an explanation that really kind of that really was impactful for me when I first started learning. So the Mishnah says, Moshe kibel Torah misinai, from Sinai. It could have said Moshe received Torah at Sinai. It's a location. Why does it say Sinai, from Sinai? So it's explained in different places that Moshe received Torah from a place of Sinai. What is a place of Sinai? Sinai is, in our tradition, understood to be the lowest of mountains. For Moshe to properly accept Torah, he had to be humble. From a place of Sinai, from a place of lowliness, that's how you can receive true Torah. And I think that this opening is hinting to how we should act as educators, as leaders, as parents. We should try to lead our people that we're leading from a place of humility, from a place of lowliness. And I think from that direction, the other explanations of the Mishnah, the other parts of the Mishnah are become elucidated. So from a place of lowliness, humility, we should be patient in justice. So when we're dealing with students or children or anyone else that we're leading, we should be patient in dealing with them. We should take a moment, not just to give quick answers, but take a moment to really see where they are, go into their mind space and their inner world to be able to deal with them properly. I shared this recently on a Parsha video. I had a rabbi who did this for me. Rabbi Kenny Cohen was my rabbi when I first got to yeshiva, and there were many rabbis there. But he was the one who really was patient with me. He took me around with him to get food. He bought me sandwiches, and he was extremely humble in his dealings with me, and he was patient. And he didn't just give me quick answers. He tried to understand what I was going through, and based on that, he was able to give me proper rulings for myself to guide me as I was growing in my Judaism. So that's a very important, from a place, he had lowliness, a place of lowliness. From that place, we should be patient with others. Now, another guidance that stems from this lowliness is to raise up many disciples. So my rabbi and the rabbis that I've followed throughout my career, I try to do this myself. If you're very patient and you really go and tap into the inner world of another person, then you will not just create students who are following you, but you will create students who will be able to stand up on their own 2 feet, and they will feel empowered to be their true selves. That's why the Mishnah chooses the words ha'amidu talmidim arbeh, to raise up, not just to educate or to teach many students, but they are commanded to raise them up, to elevate themselves. Ha'amidu literally means to stand up, to help them stand up on their own 2 feet. Many students. So from a place of lowliness, the teacher should encourage the student to stand up and become their true selves, and not just to follow whatever the rabbi says. That's not the goal of education. The goal of education is to create students who will stand up, following our guidance, and to be who they really are based on our guidance. So that's the idea of ha'amidu tamidim harbeh, to raise up many students, to let them stand up on their own. Finally, there can be a misconception that rabbis should just be at the beck and call of their students. That's not the case. You help individuals become who they are, stand up on their own 2 feet, but you still should set a fence around the Torah for them to guide them. So you need, number one, to be patient with your students. Number two, you need to understand where they are and enable them to stand on their own 2 feet, to become their own true selves. But you should still have boundaries for them and set a fence around the Torah for them to thrive within a Torah, within a traditional direction. So those are the three directives here that all stem, what I believe, from a place of Sinai. So that's one, and I think that's a proper way to open up Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers, because our whole goal in Jewish ethics is to enable our students to become great people, and also to really become their true selves. So let's move on to chapter. We're just kind of moving through Mishnah after Mishnah here. So move on to chapter 1, Mishnah 4. This is a really nice Mishnah. This Mishnah, chapter 1, chapter 1, Mishnah 4, and chapter 1, Mishnah 5, deal with how we should act with our surroundings. So it says, Yossi ben Yoezer, Ish Tzeda, and Yossi ben Yochanan, they received the oral tradition from Shimon the righteous and Antigonus. So what did Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer used to say? What did he used to say? This is in chapter 1, Mishnah 4. He says, let your house be a house of meeting for the sages, and sit in the very dust of their feet, and drink in their words with thirst. Okay, so we have here, let your house be open to Talmidei Chachamim, to rabbis coming in and spending time in your house. And when they're in there, make sure you learn from them in the most proper and diligent way. And that's through sitting at the very dust of their feet. The language is mit abek ba'afar ragleim. The avak, sitting at the dust of their afar, their dust of their feet. And then through that humility of learning from them, a willingness to learn from them, you should drink in their words with thirst and receive everything they have to teach you. So that's a simple reading of this. The next Mishnah focuses on how we should deal with, not just with rabbis, but from everyone in the community. But this Mishnah deals with our dealings with rabbis. And some have said the fact that Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer was living in Sreda, which is not in its center of Torah, therefore he guided individuals in that location to make sure there are Torah leaders frequenting their home. Their house is a Beit Vad, a meeting place for rabbis, because the surrounding area was not full of rabbis like Yerushalayim, which is what Rabbi Yossi ben Yochanan would talk about in the next Mishnah. So that's a simple reading of the Mishnah, but here are a few teachings that I find valuable in connection to this Mishnah. So this Beit Vad is very powerful. It's not just saying that your house should be open to rabbis. Your house should be a place of convening for rabbis. We should spend time with rabbis. When I first became more observant in Israel, I used to follow my rabbis around. And I had people who do that with me as well. And it's a valuable experience because you get to see how the rabbi deals, not just in the shul, not just in the Beit Midrash, in the study center, but throughout their lives. So you should make your house a Beit Vada, a house of gathering. So you're around the rabbi for extended periods of time. So you see how the rabbi deals in all their life dealings. In addition, another explanation to this house of gathering, I saw Rav Barrow Wine say, it's not just important to have rabbis come into your house. You should have your house be a house of gathering for rabbis' words, meaning you should have books, Sfarim, in your house. You should have a house be a gathering for Sfarim. I have some in my office, but most of my Sfarim are in my home. There's a certain strength, certain stability, certain centeredness that comes from having many Sfarim, Torah books in your house. And it sends a message to those who come in, sends a message to your children. This is something that's valuable to you. So your house should be a house of gathering for that. I once heard a rabbi say that you should have great self-esteem, not self-esteem, shelf-esteem. Your shelf should be very praiseworthy because it has a lot of Torah books in it. Now, there's a final idea here, which I happened to cross this teaching one day when I was in Yeshivat Merkaz Hara, like in 1999. I happened to be one day just on Shabbos in the library, and there was a sefer called Ruach Chaim. It's a commentary on Pirkei Avos. So it's just sitting on the table, and I opened it up. I flipped it open to this Mishnah, and I saw an amazing explanation, and then this triggered another explanation in my head. So I want to share that with you. This is the final part of the Mishnah, where it says you should sit at the dust of the rabbi's feet. So the Ruach Chaim says this on this. He says the language mitavek is not just talking about the dust of their feet, but the verb aleph bet kuf in Hebrew means to struggle, to battle, to combat. It says vayavek ishimo when it comes to Yaakov, he battled with an angel. That's the same root, aleph bet kuf. So he says something, the opposite message here, which really does come to the same conclusion, that it's important to when you're sitting and learning from the rabbis, it's important to combat or struggle or battle with their words, not in a negative way, but to really push back when you're struggling with something, or to question and to get to the depths of what the rabbi is saying. Not just to sit passive and accept everything they're going to say, which is the literal reading of this, but rather to combat, to push back when you need to, in order to really get to the bottom of what the rabbi wants to teach you. For many years, I did this with a lot of my rabbis. Sometimes they got annoyed, but I think that I was able to really get to some deep Torah because I didn't just sit passively. I combated, I fought, I pushed back in a respectful way, and through that, I was able to really take in the depths of what they were saying. I was really able to properly drink in with thirst the words of their Torah because I was able to sift through the parts I didn't understand. And I think that's like another level, which is kind of, I said I mentioned it, it triggered another thought in me, which is like, not just to push back against their teachings, as the Ruach Chaim says, but also sometimes rabbis can make mistakes, and no one's perfect. So when you're sitting in front of a rabbi, sometimes you have to think what they're saying, and sometimes to push back against areas that might be mistaken or not work for you. Sift through it a little bit sometimes, and through that you can completely take in all of the Torah you need with thirst, because you've kind of sifted through what you need. So that's another piece of pushing back. Not just like pushing back in terms of learning, but to recognize that rabbis are not infallible. And to understand that sometimes you may push back against some sort of dust that might be on the rabbi, or on the rabbi's feet. It says the feet of the rabbi. The lowest part of the rabbi might have a little bit of dust, okay. But you push back against that, you sift through it, and you can be able to receive everything you need in terms of your guidance for your life. So that's like another piece to that. So that's a few new explanations for understanding this Mishnah, chapter 1, Mishnah 4. We'll move on to another Mishnah. This is chapter 1, Mishnah 6. So we're kind of limited in time here, but I want to share a thought on this. This Mishnah says like this: Yeshua ben Prachia and Itai the Arbelite Ha'arbeli received it from them. Yeshua ben Prachia used to say, appoint, make for yourself a teacher, acquire for yourself a friend, and judge all people with scale weighted in their favor. So the first teaching is to aselech harav, make yourself a rabbi. So it's not saying that everybody should go to rabbinical school. Meaning, you should appoint yourself a rabbi. That's a literal explanation. Then you should acquire for yourself, kanelecha chaver, acquire for yourself a friend. It's sometimes explained that even if you need to put out money to support your friend or to help them or to stabilize them financially, you should be willing to do that. That's the idea of the language of kanelecha chaver. I heard once explained kaneh also means like a quill, a writing utensil. So sometimes you should be learning with friends if you can, but if you can't, sometimes the best way to remember your learning is through writing. Kaneh, which is that writing utensil, lecha chaver. That could be your friend in learning. Sometimes writing down your thoughts can help you remember your learning as well, not just speaking it out with other people. It's like a little another way to understand that. And finally, judge all people with the scale weighted in their favor. Judge everybody favorably. So here is a thought on this judging everybody favorably. The language is dan et kol ha'adam, all of humanity, with favor, which is a powerful message in itself. It's not just talking about Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel. All of humanity, judge them in favor. But I saw an explanation to this, which is amazing. This idea of dan et kol ha'adam, judge all of the Adam, all of the individual in front of you in their favor. Why is it saying all ha'adam? The kol ha'adam, all the individual. When you're coming to judge somebody or think about what they might have done wrong to you, or try to assess them, if you're even going that direction, to like thinking about judging them in their lives, you have to be very careful. You have to judge all of the factors that go into somebody's acts and their behavior. Somebody might have wronged you. When you're going to come to judge, if you're going to come to judge what they did, you should first take a step back and judge the entirety of the individual. What does that mean? To think about everything they may have gone through in their lives that might have led to this behavior. Someone cut you off in the street. You're going down the road and somebody cut you off and you're upset, or they're rushing past you and they're interfering with your peaceful drive, or somebody at work said something very, very rude or inappropriate to you. So it can make you upset. That's completely understandable. But sometimes it's worth taking a step back and judging the entirety of the individual. What did they go through today? Maybe they had a bad morning. Maybe someone did something wrong to them that they're still processing. Or maybe something's not right in their home life. Or perhaps they had a very tough childhood, and this is how they deal with situations. We never know what a person's going through. So we have to judge the person in their entirety to see the bigger picture. And when you do that, hopefully you'll get to a place where you'll judge them in their favor. You judge things in their favor, seeing things in a favorable way, because you'll be able to have a broader perspective and put things into perspective to understand that it's not just about you. It's about perhaps all the things that they're going through. And through that, you could be more forgiving, because you know this person has gone through a lot in their lives or in their day, and they have a lot there that's a lot on their plate. And so you can be more forgiving and judge them when you see them, the entirety of their experiences and the entirety of their life. I want to share one more thought with you. I know we're 1 minute beyond our scheduled time, but this is from Mishnah, chapter 1, Mishnah 7. Here it says, it's a beautiful idea that I thought of, and I think it's very, very pertinent for us in our lives. We talked about someone might be doing something negative to you at work. Here is a situation where you might be around somebody on a consistent basis who might be harming you. Meaning it's not a positive relationship, it's a toxic relationship. I think our Mishnah is guiding us in our dealings with individuals who are around in a consistent basis, and helping us detach from them if we need to, if the relationship is toxic. So here's the explanation that I like to offer. The Mishnah is saying like this: Nitai the Ha'arbeli says, keep a distance from an evil neighbor. So if you have an evil neighbor, you should distance yourself completely from them because they're evil. Do not become attached to the wicked, or do not become a friend of the wicked. So the wicked, you might be able to be around them still. They're not your neighbor, so you could be around them, but do not become their friend. Distance yourself from them. And finally, it says, do not abandon faith in divine retribution. Al tichesh mina poranut. So what does that mean? Do not abandon faith in the fact that their lives might look like they're really great, but know that God is seeing everything and God will administer justice. That's a simple reading of this. But here's another explanation. Keep a distance from an evil neighbor. Do not become attached to the wicked. Stay away from individuals who might be harmful for you. Do not become close friends with someone who's wicked. Sometimes we're in a friendship. We think it's a great friendship, but really it's harmful for us. It takes us a while to really see how harmful it really is. But when we do that, we have to distance ourselves from that connection. We have to take the step out of it. Sometimes it's hard to do that. You might have a work experience that's negative for you. It's toxic. You might be around a friend who you think is really your friend, but you realize, no, they're not really your friend. It's toxic too. It's very hard to distance ourselves from that, because whatever it is, it draws us in. It could be just some pattern that we're in inside of ourselves, or some sort of negative belief we have in relation to ourselves that's drawing us into that negativity. Our Mishnah is telling us that we should still distance ourselves from it. Why? Know that it's guiding us to not be afraid of what might happen from disconnecting from them. Sometimes we're just afraid to disconnect because it's scary. Something's drawing us in that's scary to disconnect from. So our Mishnah is telling us that don't become michash means to not give up hope due to the puranut. Here's how I'm explaining it. Do not give up hope due to what it's called. I'll teach you. The last line is I'll teach you. Do not give up hope from what will happen afterwards. You might think that it's going to be horrible for you. There's going to be puranut. This language of puranut can be a calamity or a bad experience. You might think that distancing yourself from this negative influence is going to be bad for you. You're going to feel empty. You're going to feel alone. It's going to be negative. The Mishnah is telling us, distance yourself from them. Do not give up hope from what's going to be afterwards. Do not give up hope thinking that's going to be negative for you. Have faith that if you step aside from a negative and toxic relationship, you'll create more space in your life for positive experience. You create more space in your life for Hashem to bring more blessing and bracha into your life. Do not give up hope due to the poranut that you're assuming, the calamity or the negative experience you're assuming might happen if you disconnect from this toxic connection. Disconnect and have faith that Hashem will open up more positive things for you in your life. So there are 4 explanations to 4 Mishnahs. There's a lot more to learn together. I hope you'll tune in next week. Have a beautiful week, and looking forward to learning together going forward. Take good care.